Going live. Good evening, good morning, good day to you. It is John the Morgile coming to you live from Greenville, South Kakalaka. I hope y'all are having a blessed day. Today is now, well, because it's after midnight, it is May the 12th, 2025. Happy belated Mother's Day, which we just ended Mother's Day, about 3 minutes ago as I kick off this live stream. I had intended to start it at 12:15, but for some reason I cannot get YouTube to save updates to live streams that are planned ahead, so we're just going to wing it and do it at midnight. Right on the money. What's up, one of yous in the stream? Let us see your thumbs, if you don't mind. And all right, now we've got 5 of you in the stream. Let's see some thumbs. Blessing. Good morning. Good day to you. Again, this is John the Morgile coming to you live from Greenville, South Carolina. And we lost 4 of the 5. Isn't that just a tragedy? Tragic, man. I guess y'all will probably pop back in once you get done seeing the sponsors of this. And this is actually from the Nag Hammadi library. It's a short one. And this is the prayer of thanksgiving. We give thanks to you. Every soul and heart is lifted up to you, the Most High, the undisturbed name, honored with the name of God and praised with the name Father. For to everyone and everything comes the fatherly kindness and affection and love, and any teaching there may be that is sweet and plain, giving us mind, speech, and knowledge. Mind, so that we may understand you. Speech, so that we may expound you. Knowledge, so that we may know you. We rejoice, having been illuminated by your knowledge. We rejoice because you have shown us yourself. We rejoice because while we were in the body, you have made us divine through your knowledge. Wow, and we the thanksgiving of the man who attains to you one thing, that we know you. We have known you, intellectual light, life of life. We have known you, womb of every creature. We have known you, womb pregnant with the nature of the Father. We have known you, eternal permanence of the begetting Father. Thus have we wished that we stumble in this. When they had said these things in the prayer, they embraced each other, and they went to eat their holy food, which has no blood in it. Scribal note, the scribe says that he had copied this one discourse of his. Indeed, very many have come to me. I have not copied them, because I thought that they had come to you, or y'all, plural. Also, this scribe hesitates to copy these for you because perhaps they have already come to you, and the matter may burden you, since the discourses of that one which have come to me are numerous. And then the rest of it was lost. So a nice little prayer from the Nag Hammadi scriptures. It's not quite large enough to add it to the playlist, but hey, I figured we would start the stream with that. So getting right into this stream, let's see your thumbs. Let's see, who do we have in the stream? If you don't mind, place a comment. And once again, happy Mother's Day to y'all. Belated. Happy Mother's Day to you. Okay. So, day before last, we did a bit of the news that involved the Trumpinator slashing NASA's budget and the NASA fanboys getting all up in arms and kerfuffly and pearl clutching about that. I say hallelujah to nixing NASA's bloated budget, right? NASAWatch.com. And the article first is NASA is increasing employee location tracking. So back in March, this writer posted, is NASA AI facial recognition technology watching you? And why? Which noted an article about the use of Clearview AI, an OSINT, or an open source intelligence platform for facial recognition that was being used by NASA. Why does NASA need to be using this? Who or what are they looking for? And what are they tracking? According to the sources, or according to his sources, there is a new DOGE imposed requirement across NASA. The exact timing of its implementation is not clear. Presently, to enter a NASA facility, you need to use a PIV, or a personal identity verification. Yeah, I keep losing stream, so I think what I'm going to do is maybe open up these blinds a bit. Open up the door. Well, yeah, but I'm not using hotspot. I'm just using mobile data. Yeah, and it should be high speed because it's the beginning of the month. So, wow, let's kick off this stream with a bunch of losing connectivity issues. Isn't that just grand and typical? Anyways, so clearly the acronym guy at NASA is earning his paycheck. Brilliant acronym there for personal identity verification card. Anyway, so the employees need to use this PIV card to enter and exit the facility as well. In other words, it's like a virtual time card, right? So NASA HQ currently tracks entry and exit activity for its employees. The system reportedly tracks people as to whether they show up for work at headquarters or that the entry-exit gap is outside a set perimeter. Employees who trip certain values get a red mark, which is matched up to their leave requests, and they end up on a list. So I guess that's the end of the first article, but I thought it was kind of interesting that NASA, which seems to be on its way to the chopping block, or at least that's what I'm reading, over the last several months since we got the Trumpinator into the Oval Office. Why would they implement such rigorous employee tracking protocols? It makes you wonder, like, are we dealing with some kind of a alien invasion? No, I'm kidding. No, really though, like, why are they trying to catch astronauts that are supposed to be in space actually checking in for the free coffee and brunch at the NASA headquarters? I mean, I'm not sure, but interesting to me that when NASA is on its way out, like, it definitely seems like they're being cut dramatically for the future budgets. They are now cracking down on tracking their employees' entry and exit, not only just using the facial recognition software that they mentioned, but also using this PIV, personal identity verifier card. Just thought that I would include that wee article in today's stream. Let's hear what you guys think. What's up, Mr. Chris 2101-3? Hello. What do you guys think? You tell me what you think about NASA implementing rigorous tracking protocols into their workflow at such, the 11th hour. Okay, so that is one quick article down and a few more to go. This is the main one that it just caught my eye, and I figured I would share with you guys because it is so funny. Just the headline. So NASA just got a rare look inside Uranus. Here's what they found. Oh, I'm sorry, Uranus, not Uranus. And let's see if we can get this image here of fake space. There we go. So we'll keep that image in mind as we go through this article. So that image there was an image of Uranus from NIRCam, the Near Infrared camera on NASA's James Webb Space Telescope. The subtitle, or the caption, says it exquisitely captures Uranus's seasonal north polar cap and inner and outer rings. This Webb image also shows 9 of the planet's 27 moons, clockwise starting at 2 o'clock, and it lists them out, whatever. But, isn't it just kind of funny that this day and age we're looking at Uranus? Is that not obviously CGI, you guys? I mean, come on. Like, they're not, it's almost as if they're not even trying anymore. Clearly CGI image. But Going on with the article, it says a rare celestial alignment in April of 2025 gave NASA scientists the chance to study Uranus in exceptional detail as it passed in front of a distant star. This stellar occultation, visible only from parts of western North America, allowed researchers to measure changes in Uranus's atmosphere that haven't been studied this thoroughly in decades. Rare Uranus event offers glimpses into its atmosphere. So on April 7th, Uranus moved perfectly between Earth and a distant star, creating a rare cosmic event known as a stellar occultation. But for NASA scientists, this wasn't just a beautiful alignment, it was a golden opportunity to study the mysterious ice giant in ways that we haven't been able to do in over 30 years. So, I would say, with, assuming the heliocentric model and just, giving them, for argument's sake, the benefit of the doubt and saying that NASA is 100% true about this stellar occultation and they're absolutely have James Webb telescope up there, why would they need to render CGI images of Uranus? And of course, the obvious answer is NASA's been lying their asses off about faking space since their inception. Not just with the Apollo missions, but with everything begin are doing valuable science up there in space and to convince everyone that if it weren't for NASA, we'd be back in the Stone Age. But really though, clearly using CGI, barely even trying. And when the president goes to cut their budget, what do? They tap on Congress to start making a stink about it. They use these ridiculous stories about finding secrets to the universe in pebbles. And, what are we going to learn by looking at the lights in the sky, the celestial luminaries, Uranus included? And by the way, is it not the definition of pseudoscience if what they are claiming cannot be verified, cannot be falsified? It is not falsifiable, right? And therefore, it is the definition of pseudoscience, but obviously CGI, right? Back to the article. By watching how the star's light dimmed and brightened as it passed behind Uranus, scientists were able to measure key features of the planet's atmosphere, like its temperature, pressure, and density, in incredible detail. This flickering of starlight creates something called a light curve and is a powerful tool for unlocking secrets hidden high in planet skies. So here's another image from the same article. Once again, obviously CGI in my opinion. Like, it's almost as if they're not even trying to make it look realistic. And frankly, why would they? They don't necessarily have to do much because everybody already believes they're nonsense. Most normal, well-educated people sort of worship at the feet of NASA. And even though they do produce such god-awful forgeries like the Apollo footage, like this garbage that we see here with the Uranus occultation, people still believe them. People will still run to NASA's aid and, shout rooftops that we need to dump more and more money at NASA's feet. I don't know, man. It must be nice, right? But kudos to the Trumpinator for nixing NASA's budget. Right. Back to the article. A light curve unlocks atmospheric secrets, according to NASA. So this is a quote from William Saunders, a planetary scientist at NASA's Langley Research Center in Hampton, VA. Quote, Uranus passed in front of a star that is about 400 light years from Earth, said William Saunders. And he's also a science principal investigator and analysis lead for what NASA's team calls the Uranus Stellar Occultation Campaign 2025. Wow. And, it must be nice to have a cushy job sitting behind a desk doing basically fuck all nothing where you can just make up shit and have CGI renderings put together and just claim that it's from this James Webb telescope flying around in fake space. And, who's ever going to go behind them and, verify or falsify this? Yeah, Russia, like Roscosmos, or, JAXA, the Japanese space agency. Anybody who claims that the other space agencies are going to go behind NASA and check and call them out on any lies or shenanigans, you're fooling yourself, frankly, because all of these space agencies are after a common goal, in my opinion, which is no more than money laundering and no less than the great deception that we've all been sort of reared into since we were little kids, just perpetuating this great deception to fold as many people as they can down the path towards basically hell, right? Because if we are all deceived about the very ground which we walk upon, so deceived that it is impossible for us to see the truth without, basically a miracle, that's their goal, and the other space agencies are not going to come behind NASA and call them out on their bullshit. At least that's my opinion. Article, as Uranus began to occult the star, the planet's atmosphere refracted the starlight, causing the star to appear to gradually dim before being blocked completely. The reverse happened at the end of the occultation, making what we call a light curve. By observing this occultation from many large telescopes, we are able to measure the light curve and determine Uranus's atmospheric properties at many altitude layers. Right. And so just breaking away from that, again, who is ever going to verify that? Like, no average Joe, no person can even launch telescopes up there to where they claim James Webb's telescope is at. And nobody's going to be flying into outer space and going to Uranus to verify this anytime soon, frankly, because you can't go into space. The celestial luminaries are nothing more than lights in the sky. Mysterious, yes, the signature of the Most High Creator of all things, indeed, but in terms of, terra firma orbiting spheres that they have convinced us all were real since we were little kids, nobody's ever going to verify that, right? Nobody's ever going to falsify that. However, when you realize 100% for certain that the Earth could not be a sphere and is also at rest, really all of the concepts of terra firma spheres that you can walk around on, flying around multiple directions in curved linear trajectories at once, it all goes right out the window, leaving NASA 100% lying about even this nonsense, right? And it is funny to me, like the guy's title. What was his title? So this William Saunders, planetary scientist at NASA's Land Research Center. Also, his other title is Science Principal Investigator and Analysis Lead for what NASA's team calls the Uranus Stellar Occultation Campaign 2025. Wow. I mean, really, maybe I should try to get me a cushy job like that, and I'll just stop calling NASA a liar. Pay me lots and piles of money, and sure, I will say there's a spinning ball once again too. No, I probably couldn't do that. You'd have to really give me a big. Anyway, back to the article. The detailed data from Uranus's stratosphere, the middle layer of its atmosphere, will help scientists understand how the planet's climate works today, how it's changed over the decades, and what to expect for future missions to this distant icy world. PJ says they are anticipating infiltration, maybe some gotcha journalism. PJ says, ask Jaron how. Yeah, I tend to agree, although, once again, I still haven't spoken with Jaron in a few years. Haven't had a one-on-one conversation with him in several years. And honestly, my heart is still a bit broken by the way that the whole final experiment thing was handled. But, enough about that, man. As they say, once you go flat, you never go back unless the paycheck is fat. Right? And that's my opinion, right? Cease and desist, be damned. So To observe this rare event, again, we're talking about the stellar occultation of Uranus, this rare event, which lasted about an hour and was only visible. This is the first time, quote, this is Saunders again, this is the first time we have collaborated on this scale for an occultation. He said, I'm extremely grateful to each member of the team and each observatory for taking part in this extraordinary event. NASA will observation of Uranus to determine how energy moves around the atmosphere and what causes the upper layers to be inexplicably hot. Others will use the data to measure Uranus's rings, its atmospheric turbulence, and its precise orbit around the sun. And, breaking from the quote and from the article for a second, how is any of that going to benefit humankind? How is it going to, really, all of that money that we're dumping into NASA for silly, scientific projects like the one that we're talking about in this article, what is the end goal? What is the fruition of this sort of endeavor? And I would say it is really just keeping our brightest minds pigeonholed in the Great Deception, because again, if people are earning big old fat paychecks for doing this kind of observation and making assumption on top of assumption, then of course it must be true and correct, right? Because why would our government, in all its wisdom, dump gobs and gobs of money into an endeavor that is merely a big fat waste of time? And again, in my opinion, the answer to that would be simple. It is to perpetuate the Great Deception. And since people do sort of gauge one another, how most people judge others, and wait, Great Deception, it lends credence to these scientists, and who want to, so they have to make sure and dump a bunch of money into the Great Deception. And I bet you if you dump enough money, you could even get certain truthers to jump ship and flip to the other side. Lawrence Williams, yeah, indeed, strong delusion money. It really is. And when you realize that the entity that is printing the money, the entity that, the Federal Reserve, this entity is basically evil incarnate, right? I'll just go ahead and plug The Creature from Jekyll Island. If you're interested in learning exactly how evil the Federal Reserve or the non-federal, non-reserve, non-bank is, check out the playlist, The Creature from Jekyll Island. It's like a 15-chapter book. Probably take you 15 hours to read through the whole thing or listen through the whole thing. But the very first 2 chapters are just really, you'll be hooked immediately. And it does detail exactly how the money is, in fact, a strong delusion, and how it is utilized to basically lead people down the garden path. And I say kudos to Trumpinator and his cabinet for making such decisions as slashing the crap out of NASA's budget. Hit them where it hurts, right? Let's make sure we don't waste $20 next year on such nonsense, right? Hoorah. What is the end game? What is the fruition of this about Uranus's turbulence in its atmosphere? I mean, come on. It is a light in the sky. This is pseudoscience. It is nothing more than, again, pigeonholing our brightest researchers, lending credence to the Great Deception on multiple fronts. And, as long as they keep on chucking out science like this, people will be more apt to believe them. And as long as their scientists have nice shoes to wear and big fat bank accounts, then of course they must be on the right side of this thing, because, they've got tons of money and they have nice shoes. Of course, that is the metric of a person's worth, right? Is their bank account, obviously. And I'm being facetious, sarcastic, and everything there. Okay, so back to the article. Oh, here's the guy we were talking about. So I'll read the caption under this image. Here's the guy. Probably a nice guy, probably well-educated, well-meaning guy. Probably deceived as he was when he was a little kid, being convinced that we live, stuck to the side of a spinning ball, flying around at supersonic spin to fathom them, right? So like the alleged orbital velocity of the Earth is like what, 18 and a half miles per second is what they claim. 66,600 miles an hour. That is so far beyond the pale of anything that we could fathom. It's ridiculous. But when you couple all of those trajectories together, it becomes obvious like there be measurable, obvious acceleration involved with spinning and orbiting around like that. The Earth is definitely stationary, and unfortunately, people like this guy, the lead researcher for NASA's shenanigans on this Uranus occultation program, like they will never be the wiser because they have been deceived about this during their formative years, and until they actually measure the Earth for curvature and at least, humor the possibility that the Earth might actually be flat and stationary, they're never going to get it. They will be deceived right up until the day that they kick the bucket, right? And it's a shame. Hopefully, our work and the work that many other truthers out there have done over the years will kick this thing right on down into the mud. And maybe, just maybe, very brilliant and well-meaning people like this guy that we're talking about here, maybe they can apply their wealth of skills and knowledge towards something productive, like, I don't know, building a new slip and slide, I don't know, building a new game of Twister. It couldn't be less productive than measuring Uranus's frickin' the turbulence in Uranus's upper atmosphere, right? I don't know, man. I'm a bit jaded about the whole thing, but anyway, back to the article. And Murphy, what's up, buddy? Please, thank you, I appreciate it. Let's get some thumbs, let's get some comments. Johnny Deluxe says, after all these years, he's truly come to believe that the Earth is stationary, and that's just because I travel between New York and LA 4 times a year. The Earth is stationary. Well, yeah, I mean, that's a good point. If you fly from New York to LA, according to the spinning ball Earth, you should be traveling in the opposite spin. Like LA should be traveling toward those plane at 800 miles an hour. Planes traveling towards LA at say 500 miles an hour. The two would meet relatively quickly. Headwind, tailwinds be down. And on the return flight, going from LA back to New York, you would be racing against the destination, right? And so it would be a much longer flight. You would not expect to meet New York in the middle as you did in the first instance. And yet, usually, these two flights are virtually identical in terms of their duration, right? And you will have variances, like sometimes the winds aloft will lend themselves towards one direction or another. Many times the eastbound flight is much shorter than the westbound flight in terms of its duration, which is exactly the opposite of what you would expect if the Earth was in fact spinning towards the east, right? So, again, and thanks for the comment there, Johnny Deluxe. It does become pretty obvious once you just humor this hypothesis and give it a fair shake and really scrutinize your belief in the ball Earth theory. It becomes pretty obvious to you. And once it becomes so obvious and you don't have any question left in your mind and you revisit things like NASA and their shenanigans, like they become so obviously full of crap, it is kind of sickening. And when you see people like this guy with all the titles, probably a wonderful guy, probably a sweetheart, these sorts of people get nothing all day, scrutinizing images that are nothing more than CGI. It kind of makes a sick, dude. I'm not gonna lie. John Deluxe says it takes the same amount of time going back and forth, and it's only faster when you have a tail. Yeah, exactly. Yep. That's one of the things that hit me pretty hard years ago when I first started looking into flat Earth. In fact, the first flight I took, I've told this anecdote a million times, but the first flight that I took was from Orlando to Dallas Fort Worth. And once I was up in the air and sort of got over the awe of aviation, I was probably 10 years old or so. I was just curious to know how much longer the return flight from Dallas Fort Worth back to Orlando would be. And when I found that the two flights were scheduled to be identical in terms of their duration, it hit me like a ton of bricks as a little kid. I was like, wow, the Earth could not be spinning. And when I got off the plane, I told my aunt, I was like, Aunt Diana, the Earth is stationary, and here's why. I was basically told off and told I didn't understand it, and given in the standard sort of canned response about how the it's a inertial reference frame, right? And so the shtick that they give you is that the Earth and the plane and the atmosphere are all spinning towards the east prior to takeoff. Therefore, the Earth and the atmosphere continues spinning towards the east, even when the plane is accelerating towards the west at 5 miles an hour. It maintains that frame of reference, which is completely the opposite of how reality works, right? You have certain laws of motion. One of them being an object in motion will tend to maintain its velocity as acted upon by some other force. And of course, we can definitely consider several jet engines attached to the wing of the plane as some other force, right? And so, no, if the Earth was spinning, you would expect westbound flights to be much shorter in terms of duration than eastbound flights, especially when you consider planes are designed to be aerodynamic, maximize on force or thrust, decrease on drag. And so the argument about how the Atmos plane makes the aeroplane continue to spin towards the east with the Earth is just nonsense. And by the way, by what mechanism does the Atmos plane or atmosphere maintain its sort of velcroedness to the ground below? Like, how is the air stuck to the ground? And by the way, can you prove that? Like, as far as I can tell, you can, and I can show you images, and everybody's probably seen time-lapse images of clouds moving in opposite directions in the same sky. So like you may have clouds that are lower in altitude traveling towards the right, and you may have other clouds that are much higher in altitude traveling towards the left. There is no sort of Velcro atmosphere to the ground. It's not worked. Is doing. By the way, the ground is stationary, measurably so. The ground doesn't spin, the Earth doesn't orbit. It is a plane. And maybe when the Trumpinator starts dumping money at the feet of flat earthers, then the world will start taking us seriously. That probably never happened, at least while NASA has its meat hooks in Congress. Because in my opinion, NASA is probably one of the largest money laundering operations ever to see the light of day. I mean, what better way to launder money than to literally launch billion-dollar cockmobiles into the ocean and explode them and just laugh about it when you lose. Oh, there goes another $100 million. Wow, that's a money laundering. That's the Cadillac of money laundering. It really is. Johnny Deluxe says, one last comment. I just want to say that I've been following your channel and you from when you first started, and I appreciate you for not selling out like some people we know. Well, thank you, man. But I wouldn't hold my breath on that, because honestly, if I get an offer at this point, I might actually take it. And if I start cucking for the globe, you guys, you'll know why. No, really, I mean, I don't know. It would have to be a pretty big check, because my moral integrity does mean a lot to me. Although, so does a warm bed and a hot meal. So that is heavily on you guys, on the subscribers and viewers of this channel. All of them, not to sound like I'm complaining. My very small and humble channel. I'm very proud to say that we're up to nearly 40,000 subscribers. It took me about 6 months to get to 10,000 subscribers. And then another 6 months to get up to 25,000 subscribers. And then I was stuck at 25,000 subscribers for something like 6 years. And finally, we've sort of inched our way up to 38,000 subscribers, where we've been sort of stuck at for a number of years. But that's okay, man. What the point that I'm trying to make is, even with, 38,000 subscribers, which is not a lot in terms of social media or YouTube these days, we're lucky to get a dozen people on a stream, maybe 50 at the most. And so it does kind of go to show that this channel has been blackballed. I personally believe that I've been targeted. And, when NASA has budgets in the billions to throw around, it's really no surprise, right? I mean, frankly, if you were pulling off a very successful and long-lasting money laundering operation, you really wouldn't want people out, shouting from the rooftops that you're lying and doing exactly that. And so, of course, they would have mechanisms or protocols in place to blackball people like me, which is why, like, it's so funny. Excuse me. It's so funny that when I first started putting out videos on YouTube, like the Nazis of NASA in the Infinite Plane, that video got, like, I don't know, 100,000 views within the first year. And now, like, I think that the quality of my content has gotten better, but I'm lucky to have a video that hits 10,000 views ever, right? And again, just keep on. 209 says, "Hey John." 209 says, "Hey John, I just want to say that I'm truly sorry for all the horrible shit that I've said to you in your comments. Better. Well, Radical, no hard feelings. I mean, I get it. When I first heard about flat Earth, I thought it was like the stupidest thing. It was like the stupidest thing I'd ever heard. But then when I actually gave it some thought and went back through the sort of my personal checklist of the reasons I believed that the Earth was a spinning ball, it does fall apart. Like, a house car. It's very kind of you to say. I appreciate no hard feelings, and God bless you for that. It's very, very sweet. But no, really though, I mean, I get it. It is something that seems so absurd. Like, oh my God, flat Earth. Like it's really, it's an insult. I mean, we've probably all called someone a flat earther who was like dense or something. And still keep on losing the game. I think I'll go sit over here. Frustrating though. When and especially like when I first, like in 2015, when I first started talking about flat Earth, it was not socially acceptable. Like, all you would get is hate. And there were a few, very limited number of people that would listen to what you had to say and it might click. But 90% of the feedback that you would get for coming out with this truth would be absolute vitriol. And so, you have to sort of gain a thick skin or grow a thick skin. Luckily, my first job ever was as a telemarketer. And so I already had a bit of thick skin when it came to that, because everybody hates a damn telemarketer, right? Anyways, but that is a good point that the other commenter, what was your name, John Deluxe, said about the airline flights. Yeah, once you've taken a few long airline flights going west to east and back to east to west, it does sink in pretty quickly that you would definitely have westbound flights being shorter in terms of duration than your eastbound flights. So that's a big thing that clicked with me very early on. The lack of curvature, celestial navigation, only possible upon a plane. The Kármán line, the fact that they claim that infinite space exists adjacent to our pressurized environment without any sort of structure separating the two, is another pretty obvious problem with the heliocentric model. Now, that isn't me saying that I believe there's some sort of a dome in the sky. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. The point is, in my opinion, infinite space with terra firma spheres flying around it couldn't possibly exist. Like, that is all contingent upon the Earth being a spinning ball. And once the Earth is proven to be anything but a spinning ball, then the rest of the heliocentric model really does go right on out the window now, doesn't it? Okay. So going back to this article, though, knowing the location and orbit of Uranus is not as simple as it sounds. In 1986, NASA's Voyager 2 spacecraft became the first and only spacecraft to fly past the planet, 10 years before the last bright stellar occultation occurred in 1996. And Uranus's exact position in space is only accurate to within about 100 miles, which makes new atmospheric data crucial to future NASA exploration of the ice giant. Wow. I mean, like, that's just, they can target and communicate with their little Limobiles, which are much smaller than a planet, much further away and no problem. But yeah, they're going to have trouble locating Uranus, plus or minus 100 miles. I mean, to me, that just seems ridiculous. But anyway, NASA just lies so much, I tend to not believe a damn thing that they say. But hey, that's just me. Um, Back to the article. These investigations were possible because the large number of partners provided many unique views of the stellar occultation from many different instruments. And see, here's another picture. I don't know if these people are getting paid to do this work or if they are paying to do this work, but there you go. There's our tax dollars at work. Some people sitting around a computer looking at images from a telescope, which will never actually be verified. Like, nobody is ever actually going to Uranus and measuring the turbulence of the upper atmosphere because, damn it, Uranus is not a terra firma sphere in space as they claim. It is merely a wandering star. It's a celestial luminary. That's all that it is. But again, I'm preaching to the choir probably on this one, you guys. And if I haven't said how much I appreciate and love y'all, I appreciate and love you. 15 of y'all in the stream, only 5. I mean, we'll take it, but that's only a 33.33333% thumb ratio. So let's see some more thumbs if you don't mind, people. I will love you the most. Okay, so NASA's infrared telescope facility joins the effort. Well, whoop-de-doo. So Emma Dahl, a postdoctoral scholar at Caltech in Pasadena, California, assisted in gathering observations from NASA's Infrared Telescope Facility, or the IRTF, on the summit of Mauna Kea in Hawaii, an observatory first built to support NASA's Voyager missions. Well, I mean, I'll tell you, it must be nice. And frankly, at this point, with all of the failures I've had in my capitalistic endeavors, honestly, switching over to the dark side and joining the ranks of, NASA fanboys the world over is looking better and better. But honestly, my personal moral integrity is a bit more important to me than a paycheck. Although I'm probably pretty foolish for that, honestly. Again, I am streaming to you live from a hotel room, which is only paid for the next... We can count in hours how long I've got this room for, and my damn savings are spent. It has been, really since Hurricane Helene, it has been an absolute nightmare. And programs like FEMA that I've paid into for my whole life, or my working life for many, many years, basically told me to kick rocks, man. So, what do you know? What's up, Brian Clark? Yep, rocket, indeed. Thumbs, thumbs, thumbs everywhere, thumbs. Johnny Deluxe says, the best thing ever was that beautiful night sky picture from the surface of Mars, and yet we can't get 4K pictures of Earth spinning from the moon. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they probably could. JAXA has some pretty good CGI images of spinning ball Earth, but again, no matter how good the CGI gets, it still will never prove curvature of the surface of standing water, which is always flat. And it will never prove that your ass is spinning around supersonic-like, orbiting in 5 different directions at once along multiple curvilinear trajectories, because, damn it, the Earth is stationary, fixed and immovable, probably set upon pillars as claimed in many ancient texts, many ancient holy scriptures, even starting with the Vedics, who had a geocentric cosmology. The ancient wisdom goes back deep, and yes, the ancients were very much geocentrists, right? And I think that's probably one of the big reasons why, modern science tries to discredit the likes of Christianity, and, the mainstream media outlets tend to poo-poo the ancient religious texts because, they were right on about this sort of thing. And, if you lend a lot of credence towards the Vedics, the ancient Hindus, the ancient Chinese even, all of these ancient amazing builders and amazing astronomers, they all knew that it was a stationary geocentric system that we live in. not a heliocentric spinning ball Earth system at all. So of course they're going to throw mud and drag the ancients through the mud as much as they can. Not to mention because it appears if you follow the mud flood narrative, it appears that we've basically taken over, like parasites, some ancient civilization that was very high tech, very attuned to nature, very attuned to the creator. Probably there were giants, right? And that is all, covered over and buried literally under meters of mud, right? What's up, Conley? How about it, man? So back to the article, test run over Asia sharpens April predictions. So on November 12th, 2024, NASA Langley researchers and collaborators were able to do a test run to prepare for the April occultation. Langley coordinated 2 telescopes in Japan and 1 in Thailand to observe a dimmer Uranus stellar occultation only visible from Asia. As a result, these observers learned how to calibrate their instruments to observe stellar occultations, and NASA was able to test its theory that multiple observatories working together could capture Uranus's big event in April. See, I thought they'd been doing this since the 60s or the 80s or whatever. Isn't that what it said earlier in the article? I don't know. And now they're saying it's just a new idea to do that. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something there, but wow. Could it be a surprise that NASA is just wasting our tax dollars on a bunch of worthless nonsense that's never going to amount to shit or come to any sort of fruition other than perpetuating the Great Deception, which is, of course, NASA's prime directive, in my opinion. But what do I know? Back to the article. Researchers from the Paris Observatory and Space Science Institute, in contact with NASA, also coordinated observations of the November 2024 occultation from 2 telescopes in India. These observations of Uranus and its rings allowed the researchers, who were also members of the April 7th occultation team, to improve the predictions about the timing on April 7th down to the 2nd, and also improved modeling to update Uranus's expected location during the occultation by 125 miles. Wow. So what makes Uranus an ice giant? Well, Uranus, they claim, is almost 2 billion miles away from Earth and has an atmosphere composed primarily of hydrogen and helium. It does not have a solid surface, but rather a soft surface made of water, ammonia, and methane. It's called an ice giant because its interior contains an abundance of these swirling fluids that have relatively low freezing points, and while Saturn is the most well-known planet for having rings, Uranus has 13 known rings composed of ice and dust. Yeah. Okay, so there goes that article. There are some pretty interesting images here. So let's I'll just scroll through these images and show you guys what exactly they are talking about. So the first one here, the caption says Uranus is changing. Hubble's 20-year time lapse uncovers atmospheric surprises. So here you goes this. That top image is clearly and obviously CGI, in my opinion. So, wow, there's $20 billion annually well spent. A bunch of crappy CGI pictures, man. Wow. This next caption reads, A Tale of Four Worlds, Hubble's 10-year hunt for secrets in the outer solar system. Some more CGI, right? Wow. Computer generated images, isn't that just a well-spent $1 billion? Unlocking Uranus, NASA's dual observations paved the way to discovering new worlds. And how do you figure that, right? The top one is the one we're talking about here for the caption. Yeah, and just more nonsense. Okay, revealing the ice giant, Uranus's hidden features uncovered by Webb. Wow, that's really crappy. Sorry, y'all. I'm doing the best I can here. But just, absolute nonsense, absolute CGI, and for what? Like, what exactly is the fruition of this? You know what I mean? Okay. And we've got another article we're going to run through here. Calling, and this is from space.com/astronomy. Calling citizen scientists help NASA's Galaxy Zoo classify galaxies seen by James Webb Telescope. So here's a real good CGI image. Let's see here. Let's see if we can get this one to pick up. Really is not picking up very well, y'all. One, you can never unsee it. Like, all of this space art is beautiful. I was always fascinated with that sort of thing as a kid, but I always did wonder, like, why does it all look so fake? Like, the same thing went for, I don't know if you guys remember, there was a pretty well hyped documentary about the Mars rover. It was on like Discovery Channel or like, I don't know, National Geographic or something like that. And uh, I swear, this place is haunted, dude. Because like when I just, I know y'all are gonna think I'm tripping, but when I just looked out, there was like somebody standing right there, like right outside my door, and I like stood up to look, and there's nobody there, dude. I kind of got the cold chills there, so forgive me. I'm not tripping, dude. I'm not tripping, but I'm freaked out a little bit. Okay, so Johnny Deluxe says all those pictures from the James Webb Telescope are all CGI. What do you think about them trying to block out the sun? What time is supposed to be 93 million miles away? People tend to forget that. Think about them trying to block out the sun. So what you mean, like when they're I'm not sure exactly like images of like solar flares and stuff, they'll blot out the sun with a black circle. Is that what you mean? Sorry, I'm not sure exactly what you mean, Johnny Deluxe. David Castro, what's up, man? Do you know how they figure out light years of distances from stars to Earth? Yeah, like I've actually covered that topic in other videos. I wish I could tell you the name of one off the top, but they figured up stellar units, or like, I'm sorry, astronomical units based on assumed distances to planets that they didn't know the distance to begin with. It's all very fascinating, but oh, yeah, the speed of light, pseudoscience is the, I'll try to link it up in the description for this stream, but if you go onto my channel and search my channel for speed of light, I go pretty in detail about how they came up with the speed of light, as well as astronomical units and light years and things like that. Or, yeah, astronomical unit. Conley says it costs about $47,000 a pound to ship things to the ISS. Instruments, costumes, stuffed animals, toys, Legos. Yeah, tax dollars at work. What like it is, it really is such a waste, but I mean, I guess you have to have a pressure release valve somewhere on the phony baloney monetary system that we have, right? Yeah, $47,000 a pound. Yeah, absolutely nonsense. You know, you know how many nights I could get at a hotel room for 1 pound of shit that goes into the fucking ocean, right? Thanks, NASA. And yeah, I know that the money is an illusion, but from where I'm sitting, man, it's a travesty because me, I'll be fine just to live in a tent somewhere. I don't need a lot of luxury, although a warm bed and a hot shower and a flushing toilet, there is not a lot that can replace that when you don't have it. Like it's the luxuries that we take for granted when you no longer have that. It does hurt, man. But what a waste. Like to dump that kind of money into endeavors that really never come to any sort of fruition, it kind of hurts Obama's feelings, is what I'm trying to say. Because shit, I'm not even worth like a fluid ounce of shit that goes into NASA's live mobiles. You know what I mean? Like, Ouch, dude, ouch. No, I mean, really though, whatever. But like as I was saying, me personally, I would be fine to live in a tent. But little Lily who, oh, and we didn't even introduce little Lily Lou who. Say hey to Lily Lily. See if we can get her in here. Little Lily Lou who. There my baby is. Oh, ain't she so sweet? Give everybody kisses, baby. Oh, there's your head. There's your head. Give everybody kisses. Oh, there's my baby.
You don't know what you're doing, honey.
Yeah, that's my baby
Like, leave me
doll.
alone, sweetie.
She's a shreeper. She's going blind in this eye, you see, y'all. Oh, she's a sweet girl. Who's a sweet girl? Say hi to everybody. Okay. And Mina's here too. Mina's in the bed. I did this stream late for reasons. But hey, better late than never, right? All right. So, wow. We've been on an hour on the dot. So, is there anything that you guys would like to discuss while I'm here? And the dozen of y'all, I love you very much, and thank you for sticking in with me. And I'll hang out here for as long as you guys want. Just put in the comments what you would like to talk about, because what I seem to always revert to is my little personal thing that's going on here, which is pretty sad, man. It's pretty shitty. Teetering on the edge of homelessness it's never a good thing. Um, I don't know if you guys were following along with me back in September prior to Hurricane Helene, but we were doing pretty good, man. Like, we had dug ourselves out of Kansas and made our way back to the East Coast, and things were going pretty good. And then Hurricane Helene happened and just knocked us back into the Stone Age for a couple of months. And then the whole debacle with Motel 6, which I've explained in several streams, it's just been one thing after another. And to me, it's probably the Most High Creator sort of nudging me away from the path that I was on. Maybe I'm in the wrong place, maybe I'm doing the wrong things, but it's like, I don't know, you try to do the right things and then Mother Nature throws a hurricane at you. And then the clutch goes out on your car. And then when you get your car back, it gets impounded less than a month later. And then you lose your place to live, and then you lose your place to live again, lose everything, your Xbox. And, I don't normally get attached to things, but now I've lost my computer too. Like, the laptop is gone. Hopefully I'll get it back, but apparently that was stolen from me as well. From people that I trusted and thought were my friends. Yeah, that hurts, man, but... Conley, that's a good point. When I mentioned, so Conley says Elon Musk is a Mason. Yeah, I was going to mention earlier that, so like JAXA and Roscosmos, man, if anybody thinks that they are going to call out NASA on their bullshit, I wouldn't hold your breath, man, because, they are all run from the top down by Freemasonic entities. And, in my opinion, who sits atop the Freemasons? None other than the devil, right? And that's a conclusion that I've come to a long time ago. 13 Bloodlines of the Illuminati is a decent book by good old Fritz Springmeier that touches on that. I started putting that together as an audiobook, but it just didn't get a lot of traction. It was a big endeavor, as audiobooks tend to be. And I just never got completed with it, right? But I've got a lot of projects that I would love to do, but, they require a lot of time and a lot of effort and computers and studio setup. And I don't know, man. I'm not one to give up much, but I am really close to just my wits' end, people. Pyramid of Occult Power, Committee of 13. Yeah, Conley, indeed. Yeah, see, that's if I don't have an article to read and bouncing things off of you guys, I just tend to start reverting back to my little situation, which is, it is dire and grim. And I do want to give a big thank you and shout out and love to all of y'all that have been helpful and supportive, not just with prayers and with monetary support, but also just, giving me a call sometimes. And, it seems... it seems, and I'm not one to sound crazy too much, but it seems that my phone has been cloned yet again. Whenever somebody, I ran a test, I had somebody call me from a phone that is not in my contacts. It was unexpected, and what happens is my phone rings, it comes up as potential spam, and then it'll be like a robot telemarketer trying to sell me something. And so I don't know how that works, but definitely don't set your phone down around people that you don't trust, right? Because it's become so easy for these snakes to clone your phone, man. I mean, I'm just gonna come out and say it. I know the first time that my phone was cloned that I'm aware of was back in like 2019-ish, and like they literally had to plug devices into your phone. Like they had to convince you to plug in a malware-infested portable charger. And for my tower computer, they had to convince me to plug in like a dongle, like a USB thumb drive, which I thought was a Wi-Fi card for my tower computer because it didn't have a Wi-Fi card. But yeah, so like my computer and my phones were compromised in 2019 through physical hardware that had to be, put into the device. Now it's just a matter of leaving your phone around the wrong people for just a brief period of time, connecting to their Bluetooth. Maybe they have to have your MEI number and SIM card number. I don't know. But it's like this phone that well, wait a minute. No, I'm doing this from Mina's phone, but the other phone that I have over there that I just bought, I don't know. So it's one of those blue phones. Call your service provider from a landline phone that is really not compromised, and come to find out you have two devices in your account that are active, although you should only have the one. Yeah, I don't know, man. So definitely be careful who you leave your phone around because people this day and age, they will gain your trust and just stab you in the fucking back, man. So be very careful. Um, but man, I don't know. That just sounds crazy. Anybody that has been through that sort of thing is probably just going to think I'm crazier than ever. But no, just be careful, man, because there are some snakes out there, and they will get into your shit, man. David Cat, the true story of Germany and Japan's crimes. Uh, Before World War II, both nations had taken control of their banking system. Yeah, it is really a touchy subject, but I tend to agree. I haven't looked too much into the Japan side of things, but I do know that, well, at least in my opinion, the historical rap sheet that the likes of Hitler got are probably not 100% accurate. Now, that isn't to say that I'm going to go be baking Hitler any birthday cakes anytime soon or anything, but like from what I gather, um, the Allied nations were sent over there to decimate Germany with fire bombs and boots on the ground campaigns for reasons that we are not told this day and age, right? And so we're told that we went over there to free the prisoners of war. Were put in internment camps or POW camps over in the German Empire. Yes, they definitely did have a campaign against a specific race, and I'm not trying to belittle that or go against that. But what I will say is that, and my grandfather participated in this firsthand and told me all sorts of really detailed, amazing, and horrifying stories about his time over there. But they had campaigns to decimate the German infrastructure, so like their railways, their tunnels, bridges, um, supply lines, communications networks. So there was a very successful campaign to decimate Germany's infrastructure. And as a result of that, Germany definitely lost its capacity. Oh, what's up, Jadu? $2. Hey, dude, do you have Ko-Fi? I don't know what Ko-Fi is, so I guess I do not. But thank you for the super. Lost the stream. We're back again. Germany, their the outskirts, And so, as a direct result of that, their POW camps were like the first to go, right? And I am sure, from what I've gathered, Germany, they did whatever they could, or they did anything in their power to keep their outskirts resupplied. But during wartime, you can only do so much, especially when you are getting lambasted from all sides, as Germany certainly was. But at any rate, one of the things that they could not resupply were pain meds, and so that's where you got the invention of methadone, was to replace the dwindling supplies of morphine. Where if you're in a war environment and you have severely injured people, um, so anyway, they could also not reach things like antibiotics. And so when you have like an outbreak of typhoid in your POW camps, you're going to have a lot of people perish, okay? And from what I gather, it does appear that the prisoners of war camps were heavily affected by typhoid, and they were not able to heal these people up, right? And so when the Allies were victorious, and people like my grandfather came home to big parades and ticker tape, you don't want to tell these guys that, yeah, we won the war, but also you're responsible for, I don't know, millions of innocent civilians dying that were, prisoners of war. You don't want to tell them that. And so it's much easier to write in the history books, we lost the stream again and back. They made meth also perverting. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, though, I've heard that, but I'm pretty sure that the Allies were using methamphetamine for their pilots and soldiers long before that. So I think a lot of people get methadone and methamphetamine confused. Okay, but my research definitely tells me that the methadone, which is a synthesized opioid, fast-acting, long-lasting opioid, was a direct result of the Allies decimating the German supply lines, and so the Germans put their scientists on it, and they came up with methadone, which actually does great for people trying to come off of other opioids. I'm not sure about methamphetamine. At any rate, we had, right. So I'm not sure, but again, to sort of round out that point, I think that, and again, I'm not trying to go and bake Hitler any birthday cakes, but I do believe that we have been misled about the motives for that war. It does appear that the Germans were moving away from the centralized banking system and onto sort of a gold standard, and the world bankers just couldn't have that. They couldn't have a military superpower, financially sovereign and independent of their fiat currency systems that they were rolling out all over the place. And so I think that, like, honestly, and again, my grandfather and 4 of his brothers fought in World War II directly against the Nazis and the Japanese. And so, I'm not saying anything other than those guys were decent guys and definitely deceived about our, like, emaciated people. I think that was originally the plan of the Nazis. Like, it does seem to me that the POWs were prisoners of war. And by the way, at the very same time, the Americans, like here on the home front, we had Japanese people locked up in internment camps and POW camps here as well, in internment camps, right? So we were doing the exact same thing, and if somehow the Nazis would have come over here and bombed the crap out of our infrastructure and decimated our ability to resupply those camps, you could have had a similar thing written in the history books about us, even though we're not true. So at any rate, you guys, we kind of got off of the rails there, but let me wrap this one up, and I will say, against it, the wolves are at the door, you guys. We are going to be a miracle. Since Hurricane Helene has been a struggle, I have tried and tried to make things work, and Mina's health it's been a roller coaster ride with her health. She's doing a lot better right now, but we don't have a car. We don't have anywhere to live. We're screwed, man. We do have a roof overhead tonight, and the room is paid for, counting in the number of hours. I'm pretty close to having enough to pay another night here, right? But they don't want pretty close. They're charging $80 a night for budget in, and frankly, keep getting called. Anyway, let me end this stream. If you guys would like to support the channel and help us get through this mess, Venmo, Pay. I don't want to start crying on stream, so let me wrap this up, and I will keep y'all posted as to how things go. But keep us in your prayers. If we can sure use prayer warriors and financial support from family. So God bless you guys. Thank you, Baroque Blues, and we will see you in the next one. Y'all be good. One love. Spread the word, spread the world, and peace out, everybody.